record. Okay, so this is an introduction to Python class, and I think there's many reasons that Python is selected as the language of choice for many reasons, especially in 2021, right? You may heard a lot of buzzwords like machine learning, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things. Python is widely used in data science, those kind of automation industry, and embedded programming. So, and it's very, as you can see later in this course, Python is really very similar to a natural language like English. So it's a very good first language if you have never programmed before. But even you have other programming language under your belt, I think learning Python is a plus for you, because this is my go-to language, because I think to freely express your algorithms, ideas in terms of the programming language, Python is usually you wrote least number of lines in Python than other languages. So that's why I think Python is a great language to learn. And like I said, this is the first introduction course in programming. So don't worry if you don't have any programming experience before. All you need is a attitude to learn and paying attention to details. Okay, because this is really important. All right. I guess you are free to use either Mac or PC. All right. So most of as you already know, hopefully you're gonna primarily work on Zybooks, which is here. You're supposed to purchase one and make sure you sign up in the right section. Okay. So what is our section? X2949, right? If you're not using this section number, I cannot grade your work. So make sure you put in your correct email address and section number. And as you work through these activities, you may have some question you can ask in the general discussion forum. And also the labs are important. So you may encounter some of the, for most of you, if you haven't used the Zybooks before, there may be some something that you really need to get used to. Like, for example, those programs, you need some input, right? And you may want to enter, when you test your program, you can enter those parameters here, one per input lines, okay? You just need to input one per lines, not in the comma separated list, but one per line. And I also recommend you to debug as I can in those kind of online IDEs, or you have installed your own IDE like VS Code or PyCharm, which you are using next week. But you can also go to, this is my favorite website, right? Replit.com, where you can freely share your code with others and with me. If you have any questions, you can type it and share the link so I can see your code. That's my preferred way if you want to discuss the code. And as you can see, this is really a good, online IDE that you can use for writing Python. Okay, so I recommend you troubleshoot here or local IDE before you post it to Zybooks. This way, because sometimes the Zybooks has some bugs. The server may be busy. Sometimes you have nothing wrong, right? So pay attention to details. That's what I want to say. Okay. And so really this course is not only training you to learn a new language, but also hopefully you can learn some computational mode of thinking, some basic algorithms, and problem solving, really, how to solve the problem using computer as a tool. Okay, so here's some references if you like to dig more other than Zybooks, right? So here let me see if I can share this Google Doc link for you so you can, how do you verify a section with sign up for Zybooks? That's a good question. Well, in the first week, I'm gonna, look at your name, because I need to download all your works from Zybooks. And if you're not in my section, I will email you. Okay. So, but you should know, because when you sign up, there must be a field that you can enter your section number, right? If you enter it correctly, you don't need to worry. Okay, so I haven't gone through that process before because I'm a teacher, so I don't need to sign up for my own class. I was given a account, so so I don't know exactly what the process will be, but I imagine there will be a step that you need to enter the section number, right? So in other words, you should be confident that you are signed up in the correct way, because you need to enter. Okay, that's fine. If you, I will give you the email warning if you haven't signed up in the right direction. Anyway, don't worry. So I talk about Python tutorial. Let's see. Hopefully you can open that Google Docs. So docs.python.org, right? If you have any questions on how to use a function or syntax in Python, this is the way to go. This is the official way for Python documentation. There's far more content available here. So and the latest version is 3.10. By the way, if you're using Windows, it may not come as default, right? So you may not have Python pre-installed. You need to go to python.org to download Python. Okay, I think the latest is 3.10, which has a lot of wonderful features. So make sure you have Python interpreter downloaded. So what is the interpreter? Well, here, as you can see, I have a shell, right? And in the shell, if you have Python interpreter installed, you can just simply type Python. Okay, if I can spell Python correct. And then you can see you're presented with this kind of thing, right? You have Python version number 3.8 in this case, and you can type help for more information. And this 3 greater than prompt indicate that you're in the Python shell. So you can do some calculation, like 1 + 1 = 2, things like that. So oftentimes I use the Python shell as my calculator, quick calculator, right? You can do all kinds of like 2 + 100 times 88 minus 99, something like that, right? You can do all kinds of things. How to do power, 2 to the power of 10, 1024, right? So double star means power, 2 to the power of 10. What else? I guess division, right? 10 divided by 2 is 5.0. You notice that it's 5.0, it's not like 5. So what does that mean? 5.0 is a different type of numbers in Python. In Python, there's Python 3 especially, there's like three different number system. One is integer, right? The natural number, -1, 0, 1, etc. And there's a float number, which has a decimal point. So like 3.14, it's a floating number, right? And then there is a complex number, right? Which you're not going to use very often in this course, but in some scientific calculations, you may need some complex numbers. Okay, anyway, if you have 10 divided by 2, like /, you will automatically be changed to a floating number, because sometimes like 10 divided by 3 is not, divisible by 3, right? So that's why. But if you want just the integer part of this quotient, then you can use / and 3. So to give you just the integer part, okay? So if you have a -10 divided by 3, you got -3.3. If you have -10 /4/3, you get -4. That makes sense? Because it's the close integer to that, the answer, right? -3.3. So it's just I guess -4 is less than -3.333. So it's the integer that's less than that actual answer that's taken. So like 3 is less than 3.333. Okay, so that's the rule for integer division. Now you may ask, what if I want to know the remainder of that division, right? 10 divided by 3. Again, the integer part is 3, but what's the remainder? Remainder is 1, right? So you can use the modular sign, the percentage sign. Let me just get to get a remainder, which is 1. So 10 modular 3 means, 10 divided by 3 and get rid of the integer part, the quotient, and what's my remainder, right? We call it a modulo operation. And you can see in the future, this is very important way to basically to analyze the number system, right? So if you can do the quotient, you can do the remainder. So basically, 10 minus 10 divided by 3 is the remainder. Sorry. No, sorry. 10 divided by 3 is the quotient. Yeah. So 10 minus 10 divided by 3 and then multiplied by 3, right? So that's another way to get the remainder. 1. So I have a question here. If you were to do a large number of calculations and wanted an integer at the end, okay, what be preferred to convert float to integer? Large number of calculations. So in the middle, I oftentimes recommend you just keep the floating, and only if you want to do, because there will be roundup errors, right? We're talking about that. So yeah, so for example, you have 10 divided by 3, and then maybe multiplied by 3.14 and maybe plus 12.21. Okay, and then finally, okay, let me assign this to a variable like answer, right? Answer equal to that. So if I type answer, it will see this is the answer. Now in the end, you can convert it to an integer. In Python, there is a built-in function called int. This function is like you have function name and the parenthesis and the number answer. So you can convert that answer to an integer, it will give you 22. So you can use the int function. Good question. Very good question. You want to worry about these precisions, right? So you want to keep the precision in the middle calculation and then round it or truncate it, whatever you want to say at the end. So int function or double slash, you may be able to use that in one of the labs. For example, Zybooks, I guess there is one. What is that? Not MATLAB, but okay. And in 1.16, you will exercise more about division and modulo. Okay, hopefully you can see this is the exercise, right? Reminder. Okay, so yeah, this exercise will help you understand more about that. Divide by x. I think that lab is okay. So here in lab 1.21, right, the program using integer. Okay, let's try that. All right, let's just try that. Okay, so how to do labs? Okay, let's just clear this out. And okay, so in Python, this 3 quotation mark or triple quotes is called the docstring, where anything in between multi-lines here is a comment or documentation per se. So Python won't be able, will ignore these, but this is for human to read, okay? So I highly recommend you use this docstring to document what's your program's doing, because down the road, maybe a week later, you may not be able to remember what's the intention of this program. But if you have a docstring, this is a good practice. And when you are writing code, I'm also looking for those comments in your code. That's a called industrial practice, right? It's a good practice to have comments. So write the program using integers, user num and x as input, and output user num divided by x 3 times. Okay, so if the input is 2002, the output is 1000 and divide by 2 and divide by 2, right? So if you look at this Python interpreter, let me just, oh, by the way, if you do quit count function, you'll get out of the Python shell, right? Okay, let's do a Python shell again. So if you have 2000 divided by 2, you get 1000. 1000 divided by 2, you get 500, and 500 divided by 2 is 250, right? In this case, they are integers, so it doesn't matter. Well, actually, it matters. If you have 500 divided by 2, you get 250 down 0. So you want to use integer division in this case, right? And then it sounds like it wants you to use variables. What is a variable? A variable is basically a name that represents some data, right? Or a memory space in the computer memory that can hold some data. And then we already encountered some data like integer, float number, right, in Python. And later on, you will encounter strings and lists and tuples and dictionary and all kinds of complex data structure. So variable can hold all that. Okay. So we can use a variable. Okay, I question like user none. Yes, exactly. User none is a variable name, and you use this is called assignment, equal sign. It's different than the equal in mathematics, right? It's basically assign the right hand side to the left hand side. If you think about this one, so assign something to user none. What is that? Well, you want to get this from the input. So in Python, if you want to get input from the user, you just use input function, right? And input function, you can have an actual prompt, like a string to prompt user, like please enter a number, okay? Now, when user enter a number, that number will be stored in the variable called user num. So what type of number, like variable it is, you can print type of user num. So I can print, type is another function in Python. So you can, and then I can also use comma user num. So basically I want to type, print both the type and also the number that user entered. Okay, let me run this. Please enter number. 42 is my favorite number. So you can see it's a class string. Okay, so it means that number type is a string, and that string 42. Okay, so number is 42. So now we get the number, we can do something about it, right? We can use, we can print user none divided by 2. Okay, let's divide by 2 and let's run it. And the number 42, oh, we have an error. Look at that. Is it your favorite number? Because it sounds settled. Yes, exactly. You saw that movie. Very good. The other favorite number I have, irrational number, is pi, right? 3.1415926. Actually, in Python, there is a function that you can print pi. Let's print it. Print so Python shell print mass.py. Okay, I need to import mass module. A module is basically a library of file that somebody else written, right? So inside the mass module, there is a mass.py constant. Come on. You can see it's 3.141592653589793. So that's a precision that Python will give you if you have a pi. But I can do more, right? Oh, sorry. something like that, right? I can do up to the 100th digit, but so yeah, sometimes you can beat it. This is one of the area I can beat computer, right? Other than that, computer beats me because they are faster, they can remember more things, they have more memory than I do, okay? So back to the where we are, sorry. Yeah, why there's the error here? I want to divide by 2, but I said, you can see there's some hint, right? Unsupported operand, I ask for string and integer. So obviously you cannot divide the string by 2. Does that make sense? Yeah, exactly. So it gives some hint, right? You want to convert that to what? To an integer. So basically you can do this, right? You can just remember what function we just learned, int, right? So if you have an int function, then you can convert that string to int. You wrap that whole thing into an int function, and then you get int. So now if I run this, you can see, let's say 42 again, it's an integer, and 42 divided by 2 is 21. Right, welcome. All right. So now you understand what's going on, and you have seen the first Python give you a like runtime error, right? I imagine if when you first program, you will see a lot of error messages, and sometimes this error message is very hard to decode, right? But as you see more and more like this, you may be used to you can find this error faster. Sometimes it will give you a line number like line 16. There is some error, but maybe the error is not on line 16. It's maybe in the line before it. If you want to print 42 instead of 42, how would you do that without adding the space? What does that mean? Oh, you mean, let's get rid of. Okay. Because that's a good question. Comma will automatically give you a space in between. That's making your print looks nice. But if you want to get rid of that, you have several ways to do that. We'll talk more about string operations in chapter 2. But here is some common operation, right? You can, let's say, you can use, well, this is an integer. Now let me just make it back to string, right? So I want it to be a string. If it's a string, then you can do string concatenation, where you can do add and then a exclamation point. Okay. Then, of course, this will be, you can convert that into here, actually. You can convert that to integer here. So it will satisfy and run it. Okay, 42 again. All right, so see, there's no space in between, right? Because you get concatenation, right? If you have a comma, it will automatically add a space. Good. Now, there's also multiple ways. In Python 3.6 later, there's a new way to do a string with variables in it, right? So the way you do it is you type letter F and quotation mark, and then a curly braces for your variables, and then you don't need, you just keep going, right? Keep going like this. Okay, ups. So this F string will include, so F string and with quotation mark and everything between is treated as a string. If you need to replace a value with a variable, you use a curly braces. So let's run it. Hopefully that works. Yeah, you can see that works too. So you can use F string whenever you want to make a string, including some part of it is a variable which is varies, right? You don't know, but then part of it is something that is fixed. Yes, exactly. That will do as well. Very good. So there's F string, and then of course, in slightly older fashion, you can print, let's say, print what the number you entered is, and then use a like placeholder dot format, and then with the value user none. Okay, so this is also another way. So basically you form this all quotation mark, and wherever you have a placeholder, we call it placeholder, you can use this curly braces, and then dot format with that number corresponding to that. If you have multiple numbers, you can do that, and then comma number 2. Okay, so you can have multiple variables to replace the placeholder. So yeah, there's another way to do it. Let's run it. 42. Yeah, that's it. So you can use F string, you can use format. I would recommend using F string or format because this is a really nice, a rich library that you can format the string in a very complicated ways, right? So you will learn more about this string print function in chapter 2. Okay, so I think we have a lot of details covered in input and output. Really, that's what it, like 50% of programming is you have some input, and then you can generate some output, right? And in the middle, you're gonna process the data using arithmetic or functions, and then maybe some algorithm to process the data and spit out some output. And usually the program flow is from top to bottom, but sometimes you can use a branching to redirect your program flow to some other branches if some condition is met. We call it branching, right? You use if statement, right? If A, then B, if C, then D. And then there is, if you want to do this branching multiple times, then we call the loop, and there will be a for loop and a while loop. So that's it. That's the 1,000-mile introduction to Python using for loop. I will give you some example later in this class, right? I mean today. So that's that input and output, and really that's what it is. Okay, and I will also give you some material to read if you prefer a text message to how to do basic math in Python and basic input and output, and also how to comment the code. There's multiple ways to do that. You can use hashtag, or if you don't want to have a hashtag in every line, you can do something else. So some tour of Brightspace. Okay, you probably already familiar with that, right? Each week you're supposed to look at announcement, and I will summarize the highlight for each week, and you will go to, of course, the modules, right? Learning modules, and it's like playing a computer game. You go to module 1, and you go through all these sections. You're supposed to do discussion. Don't forget about that, and you have to comment on your peers' post, at least two peers, so to get a four score. Okay. Then of course you have to do the participation activities in lab. That's for the Zybooks, and review project 1. So we will have just one project. Actually, they say 2 projects, but again, it's the same project, right? You're trying to you're supposed to build a text-based game in Python, right? Sounds fancy. Don't worry, we'll guide you through how to design the game. And so all the projects is, if you look at this informatics, it will show you progressively how you're gonna step-by-step build up this game. Okay, so project 1 is really design phase, where you design a storyboard and write a pseudocode or flowchart. A pseudocode is basically a program that's not a real code, but it's like English languages, and you want to also do a little bit demo for project 1, and project 2 you're going for strengths and actually implement the code, right? So basically, at the end of the course, you will have a game under your belt and something to brag about, right? You feel free to make your game as fun as possible. Okay, so that's basically for module 1, and I guess maybe you can go through some examples so you can have it. Of course, IDEs. You can download PyCharm or VS Code. I don't care which one you download, but just go through this instructions. And we'll talk about how to write a program in Python interactive shell, which I demonstrate. Just type Python, and you get the 3 greater than prompt. And you can edit the source code and run it and write in IDE. I already showed you the online IDE that you can write and do it. You can also, in the shell, right? You can write, okay, let's say, I don't know if I can, test.py, right? And I say print hello Python, okay? All right, so now I'm going to save it, and now you can say Python test.py, right? It will just run it. So you have a Python, instead of enter directly, you can use Python, and with the file name, all the file name is end with .py, right? That's called the source code of the code of your program, and they will show it on the screen. That's called the shell, right? So that's second way, and third way is, of course, just edit in IDE. The good thing about IDE is it give you some syntax highlighting and some color coding, so it's easier to differentiate. And in Python code, you want to pay attention to the white spaces, right? I guess that's pretty much it. White space is evil, so you have to. Sometimes it's just miss the white space or indentation, right? So I will show you. You will know what I mean by that. But I think the biggest concept is what the variable is, how to assign a variable to different name, how to pick a good name for the variable is also important. Okay, yeah, that's. And by the way, Python is not a snake. Okay, it's a modern language, and the name is actually came from a script from the Monty Python Flying Circuits, a BBC comedy since 1970s. So it has nothing to do with the snake, all right? In this course, you're gonna, first of all, use Python as a calculator, right? Python has number strings and flows. I'll talk about branching, looping, and range function. We'll show you a little bit here. And if you know these, that's like half of the battle, right? And then later we'll teach you how to modularize your code using functions, and then some basic data structures. These are workhorse of Python. I think Python is a great language because they have those dictionary lists and tuples built into language feature. In C++ or other languages, it's an external library, right? So this is a good advantage of Python. You don't need to import anything to be able to use it, okay? And yeah, there's another good resource called the Python Tutor. Python Tutor, I'm going to use that often in my lecture because you can see when you have the code and you can run this one by one, right? And you will see when you run through the code line by line, those picture will change. And what this picture represents, it represents the memory footprint of the data and the data structure that your program creates in the computer. And you can dynamically, if you're a visual person, you will see how this memory is being manipulated while you're doing this, calculation in the program. So it's a very good tool to understand the, nuts and bolts of inside Python. So this is a great tool. It also can visualize Java, C, C++, JavaScript, Ruby. So this is a great tool to have, all right? And so my advice to you to do well in this course, I think this course is pretty easy, even though you haven't done that before, right? It's first time programming. You just need to follow, pay attention to details and ask a lot of questions, and you should be okay, right? In the first chapter, you may spend more time because you're never familiar with the program in the first place. But after you practice a lot, you may get handle of it, and that should be fine. So the key is to practice a lot, right? So the good thing is there's so many tools online. You can Google it, YouTube it, And really, there's nothing that prevents you from getting a 4 score in this course. I'm going to tell you, students in my class, typically 90% of you guys will get an A, right? Because there's no reason, because you can try many times as you wish before your deadline. So just start early, right? I don't think there's anything that prevents you from getting a 4 score in this course. Okay, let's get some example. Write a program and ask user to type in 10 integers and then print their sum, right? This is a exercise. So let's use this this space. So first of all, I use the docstring, right? Docstring. So, and I'm going to paste the requirement here. Where is it? Here. Copy. So that you know what this program is for, right? It's a good habit to have this. All right. So now, every time you write a program, but are there YouTube videos of the weekly lecture? Yeah, I posted in the link here. That that's a test of attention to detail, right? If you look at the announcement, all right, you can see the second line says, here's a video for the lecture for week 1. And if you click on that, it will bring to my YouTube channel and you will see my lecture, okay? Here you go, it's in the announcement. The other question is, how many lines of code is? It's every week, but if you are good enough as digging, you will see that this channel, it's a channel, already have 8 weeks of lecture. You can work ahead, right? But of course, if you probably have, I would recommend you do 1 week at a time, so you can digest. How many lines of code is average student submission for these games? Oh, you mean the project? Let's see. Okay. That's a good question. I mean, really, it depends on how complicated you want to design, you want your program to be, right? And you want to modularize it. But I would say to implement the whole feature without additional features, just satisfy what's in the rubrics, under 100 lines of code, right? Maybe even 50. Sounds good. It's not a big project, okay? Very simple. Now, having said that, if you want more interesting project, I have tons of them. I teach another course for like in the weekend for primary school or middle school students, and they like games, right? I give them a lot of challenges in Python too. So yeah, if you're interested, I can post some fun project for you to do on your own, right? I usually give you some choices. Okay, maybe I will give you some like rock, paper, scissors game in the beginning. If you learn some branching and functions, well, we'll see about that. Okay, let me know. I'll leave note in the comment. Leave comments below in my YouTube video if you like to see more real world applications in Python. Then I'll give you something to think about, right? If you have time. All right, so let's go back to this this function. So every time you write a function, you're thinking about what's the input, right? Well, ask the user to input 10 integers. Okay, so you know how to input 1 integer, right? Num1 is equal to input, enter number 1, enter number. Okay. All right. And add them together. All right. Well, so let's do a simpler version. Let's do 2 numbers, okay? And add. Come on, what's going on? 2 numbers, right? Num1, num2, and I want to add them together. Let's use another variable called sum, or sum equals. I assign 0 at the beginning, right? And then sum. Let's see. Equal to, you can do this, right? Number1 plus number2, okay? And then you can print sum. All right, that's the output. That's the input. All right, so that sounds like a good start, right? Test.py, and then number 42, and then number 24, and what 4224? What's going on? There's something wrong. Anyone knows why? Zach? Okay. You didn't put in. Ah, very good. Thank you, Mike. Yes, yes, yes. So because if you just add to string, that's the string, right? Remember, that's a string. So you have to convert to int. Otherwise, very good. So now you learned. You have to convert to int. Otherwise, if it's a string, it's called concatenations. Oh, by the way, I wonder what is number 1 times number 2 is if this is not int. Ah, I hate to do the back. Do you know? Can you do number 1 times number 2 if number 1 and 2 are strings? Let's run it. Ah, sorry. If this is not the right program, I have to do Python test. Okay, go back to the shell. Yeah, run this. Okay, 42 and 24. Oh, can multiply sequence by non-integer of type string. All right, so I meant to be like, let's say, okay, let's do this. All right, okay, let's run again. Clear. I want to show you this. This is cool. I think you should be using that. So instead of giving a number, I will give you a string like star and 42. Let's see. Can multiply sequence by non-integer of type of string. Ah, okay. Then the second is integer. Sorry. All right. So second is integer. So what if you have a string times the integer? Okay. All right. Let's do it again. Third time is a charm, right? Very good. A star and 42. So it's 42 stars. 42 star concatenated together. Okay. So that's the trick that you can use for a second programming exercise. So we need an integer. Okay. So now these are integer. We use to add together and print the sum. I have to do this here. Number 42 and 24, 66. Now it's good. So we have to do this 10 times, right? And every time, so I want to introduce a concept of a loop. So what if I don't want to do the input, copy paste the code 10 times? What instead, I want to put these in a loop. So to put in the loop, there is a construct called the for loop, right? For, you can say a function, a variable I in range, okay, 10. So what does that mean? And colon, that's important, all right? This is the first time you encounter a for loop, I assume. So basically this is a iteration variables. I start from, okay, so what is I start from? Let's print I, okay? So now let's run it. You can see I start from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 9. So 0 to 9 is 10 numbers, okay? So range 10 give you 10 numbers from 0 to 9, right? Every time you go through this loop, remember this column is important, right? The column means the following lines belong to this loop. And you can see there's two space indentation here. That's also important. If you don't have this indentation, guess what? Here. You can see this last 9 is basically print outside this loop. So you have a 2 9s here, right? This print, okay, print. I am outside the loop. Okay, and I plus 1. I am inside the loop, and then I. Okay, let's run it again. There's no number 2. Okay, good. Let's just give them a number. Okay, let's run again. Is I important here? Very good. Look at that. I'm inside the loop, 0 to 9. I'm outside the loop, 10. I is, how to say, if you're gonna use the loop variable, it's important because What do you mean by important? I can use another number like loop, right? So now you have to match this with loop. So you don't need to use I, but by convention, traditionally use I, right? I is like iterator or whatever. Iteration, right? Short for iteration. Yeah, you can use X as well, or use anything. You can even use, if you don't use anything, you can use underscore. So that means you're not gonna use this variable, right? It just loop this 10 times. Okay, so enough for that. So let's just put this number. I can do sum plus equal. Now plus equal, what that means? Means, you know, it's the same as assign the sum plus plus int of input. Okay, so basically you get an input, convert it to integer, and add to the sum, and then finally you print the sum. Is that clear? You can see this I is not important, so I use underscore to represent I don't care. Yes and no, because you can see if I use I here, right, and I can still print I, and it will be print. So I can be used outside this for loop. Enter number. Actually, you can see now I'm using this format, right? I. Okay, I can be used inside. So basically, I'm saying enter number 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's run it, and you will see what's going on. Let's finish this. Okay, let's do that. Am I too fast? Enter number 0. Okay, so 12, number 1. Actually, this is not a good format because you see, you sometimes you need a aesthetically pleasant, right? So programmer need to be artists too. So you want to leave a space and a column so that people will understand what's going on, right? Let's run it again. Come on, Python and test.py. All right, see, enter number 0. By the way, there's a story why computer scientists like to go count from 0, right? So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. How 1 plus or 10. So from add 1 to 10, the answer is 55. You can see the outside the loop, this I is still referred. Any question on that? What if you want to list to be 1 to 10 instead of 0 to 9? Very good question. You have two ways, right? You can say I plus 1. You can plus 1 here. So you will start from 1 to, because that index is really for human to read. You didn't really use this, right? You just add this to the sum again and again. It's like accumulator and that. You can also, the range function, actually we want to do Python help range. So you type help range, it will give you the range function how to use this, right? Remember, you can use type help and the function name, and the Python will give you how to use it. So you can see its range has 3 parameters. One is the start, one is the stop, one is the step. So you can say, I'm going to start from 1 instead of 0, comma, and stop at 10, right? And step is 1. So if it's 1, I'm not using that. So basically it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's do that again. Test dot here. Let me outside. Okay, so Python test1.py. Oh, number 2. Oh, because I added the one that I don't need to add 1 here. Okay, let's run again. Number 1. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 55 or 45, whatever. It's 45 now. Is that clear? So yeah, the range function has 3 parameters: the starting point, the end point, and the step. So if I take step 2, guess what? It will do differently, right? So 12, 21, 34, 45, 56, 67, 78, Whatever. You can see 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, all the odd numbers, right? Because the step is 2. You can even say, let me count backwards, okay? So in the New Year's Eve, right, you want to have a program to show the counting backwards on the big screen. So what do you do? Starting from 10 to 0. Oh, by the way, did you notice that if I say 1 to 10, it only gives you 9 numbers? That's the details, right? Ah, okay. Do you need another loop? No, because when you say in range, that means it will start, I will be assigned to a number from this range function. And depends on what the first number in the range function is, you can start from there. Unless, you can reset, but that's not necessary. And yes, if you don't use another for loop, then I will be, you want to clear the I, you want to set to 0. Okay, for example, if I say for another function I, so basically this is from, let's do that, right? So 0, 1 to 10. Okay, you can see 1 to 10, it gives you 9. So you have to do 1 to 11 to get count to 10, okay? And because 11 is not counted. So now I get another for loop range. Let's do backwards. 10 is 10 to 0. Let's do -1, okay, and -1. Hopefully you understand this now. And print counting, and let's using a different way. Use f string. The counting and use I. Very good. All right. So let's do that. Clear. Boom, boom, boom. Enter number 1, 12, 23, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 0, 100. Okay, so you can see it's initially the I from 1, 2, 3, 4 to 10. I get 11 because 11 is not counted, right? And then I'm counting backwards to 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 0. And then you can print Happy New Year, right? Actually, I'm almost made a mistake, right? You have to print Happy New Year outside the loop. So the indentation is important. Happy New Year, yes. All right, so we can get rid of this. Now, to get rid of this, you can use hashtag, right? So make it. What error? Oh yeah, because I missed the, yeah, thank you. This is called a typo. All right, let's run again. Look at that. 10, 9, 8, and you have New Year and 0. Now, if you wanted to print slowly, like 10, 9, something, right? You want to do a sleep. Time.sleep. Python has a sleep function. I'm going to sleep 1 second, but you have to import a module, right? A module, like I said, is some library because I don't have time. What's going on? Undefined name time. Now it's good. Maybe it takes time to. Okay, let's run it again. 10, 9. You can see it's now. It's counted all the way to 4 and it stopped. That's interesting. What's going on here? To 4. Time stopped. Yeah, I have no idea. It counted 4. It should let's make it faster, like 0.5 seconds, right? Okay, faster, clear. It could be interpreter thing. I don't know. Come on. Hey, sometimes the online IDE has some problems. You may want to run it in your local computer, right? That's why Zybox is not reliable, right? Don't double think. Maybe you're right. It's just the computer. You think computer will never be wrong? Think it again, right? Here you go. Happy New Year. All right, I guess you learned how to do the loop thing. Now you can do the modules, chapter 1 to week 4. Did we talk about the branching? I guess we were gonna talk about a program that involves branching. I think that's a fun game too. I'm gonna skip this Super Mario because it's very boring, and you know how to print a shop, right? So I guess you can print this shape using a for loop now, right? Leave you as an exercise, okay? I have another interesting, maybe you can do that as a homework. So write a program that asks user to type in an amount of money and prints the minimum number of US coins required to make a change. If you give a $10 bill, how many quarters? You can break it down into quarters, dime, nickels, and pennies, right? And how to break the money down so that you have least amount of coin that you can hand to the user, right? And here's a hint to choose the biggest coin first. Use the largest coin first so that the total amount may be minimum. Now, in reality, this may not always work. It depends on how you divide those different coins. So that's more involved, right? But think about this. This is also a problem in the future labs. You got some ideas. Yeah, interdivision is important. Yeah, think about this. Okay, let me just give you that in the chat window so you can think about this as like exercising the brain. All right, so I think it's almost there. I want to show you a program that involves branching. So what branching is basically if else, right? So basically it looks like this. If something colon and do something and else if something, right? And do something, and then finally else if these two are not satisfied, do y, right? That's the structure for the branching, okay? And that's it. Don't forget the columns. So what we can do let's write a program that asks user to guess a number randomly generated by the computer. Okay, let's give the range like 1 to 100, right? So numbers range from okay, so now you're going to think about what's the input, what's the output. So what's the input? User guess, right? User guess number. What's the output? It didn't say specifically, but you have played the guess a number, right? In childhood or whatever. You guess a number, I will tell you if the number is, so I think about number, yeah, too low or too high, or bingo, you guessed my number right. So yeah, that's the 3 possible output that you can do. Okay, so let's just start with the input, right? So guess is equal to input, right? Please enter your guess. And I can give some user-friendly hint like 1 to 100, right? So you're not gonna. And then computer have to generate a number, right? There is you have to Google it, right? Let's Google Python generate random integer, random number. Okay, how to generate? And there is a random module. Look at that. This is a Python documentation, right? It's a random module. I'm going down. I'm gonna check for if I just want to generate a random number between 1 to 10, 1 to 100, what shall I do? Okay, there's a lot of documentation on that. Let's see. There's a rand range start stop. Okay, I can use that. Oh, there's a rand int AB. So return a random integer is less than equal to B. Okay, so rand int is it. It is. So let's use rand int. Okay, so import random. If I can spell it right, import. That's how you do the program. You just search for some knowledge online and you know how to use it, right? Read documents. That's a skill for any programmers. So random, how to use it? Random dot rand int, right? So basically you are enter 1 to 100. So and then I can print computer because I can cheat, right? I'm the programmer. I designed the world. I'm the god in my world, right? Okay, so let's just run it. Okay, clear and Python cast.py. Enter on guess. I guess 50. There's something wrong. So random has no attribute rand int because I have a typo rand int. All right, 50. Okay, computer gets the 22. All right, so now you have computer gets number and your user input. How are you gonna prompt user too low or too high? Now it depends, right? Whenever you say it depends, there is an if statement. If computer, okay, doesn't matter. Guest is greater than computer. What do? You say to what? If your guest number is greater than computer generated number. Too high, right? Yeah, very good. Else if guest number is less than computer, what do you say? Too low. Very good. And then thirdly, else, if it's not greater than, not less than, then what you gonna say? Yeah, you made it. You win. Come on. This auto completion is really, all right. So let's try it. This is a game that's, so I just want to show you, okay, let's say 50. Not supported between, okay, so this is a common mistake again, right? What's the mistake? Your input has to be converted to a integer, right? Very good. All right, so now clear. Very good. And run. 50. Too low. Okay, the game ends with just one try. That's not fair. I want to play multiple times. What do we do? First of all, you want to make this game a little bit easy. So you don't want to make, let's do this, right? Let's do a loop, right? So how many times there is a loop other than for loop? We can use for loop, right? For I in range, well, give them 5 tries. How about that? Now you need a tab. Why? You need so all these statements is inside this for loop, right? Give them 5 times, but you also want to let the user guess the number, right? Every time it's not correct, you want to put the guess inside the loop, right? So every time it didn't guess right, you go back and let them enter your guess again. Does it make sense? But you don't want to change the computer number every time, otherwise it's too difficult, right? So let's try it again. Enter your number, 50. Too low. If it's too low, what are we gonna do? Tell me a number. Between 1 and 50, right? How about 25? Too low. Wait. What I'm thinking, right? 50 too low. Should be 50 to 100. Sorry, 75. I wish the one. Okay, 75 too high, and 50 is too low. What do we do? 60. Someone say 60. Too high. 50 to 60. 55. How about 55? Too high. And it's end. So you lose, right? Actually, you can make this more fun. You can print, oops, you lose. The correct answer is, and then give them a dot format, and then computer. Okay, so something wrong here. Why? Okay, so you can print this computer. If we guess correctly on the first try, it was still loop. Very good observation. So what do you do if you win? You can do a break statement. So it will not continue anyway. So break means I break from the loop. Okay, very good observation, Rachel. You got the extra points. See, this is exciting, right? Now, of course, I haven't made a comment. You can make a comment here. Randomly generate a number between 1 and 100. And you just make this is like game loop. Okay, so can you do an infinite loop? Yes, you can do an infinite loop. Now, what you do is you change this to while and say true. That's gonna be an infinite loop. So you will keep trying until you get this win and break out the loop. That's called infinite loop. Right? You can use a while loop. And that's exactly where while loop is typically used in game, because you don't know how many times user is gonna play, inside the game. It depends on user's skill. So use a while loop and only break the loop when some condition happens. You can see every time you have a if statement, you have an indentation as well. So Python treats indentation very seriously. Otherwise, it will not even run. Okay. Now, of course, inside the while loop, you can still give them a limited number of chances, right? Adding a surrender option seems like it would be tricky. No, it's not. You know what? You can say, you can piggyback on this guess, right? If I can say if, because guess is integer. Oh, that's right. Guess is integer. Maybe you can say enter -1 to quit. How about that? Right? Then you can just do what? You can say if guess is equal to -1. Remember, I have a double equal means it's not assignment. If you use just single equal, it's wrong, right? You are comparing the guess to -1. You can just print. You really want to quit or something, right? And you can give them a input, right? Yes or no. Okay. And then if user, let's say, if this guy is equal to yes, right? Then break. How about that? Right? So I have this surrender option. How about that? Very good. So I can -1. You really want to quit? Yes. Oops, you lose. Your correct answer is 2. Is that tricky? You can make it. Else go to line. Yes. Now if you don't else, you can go to, if this is not correct, you just keep going, right? And you will get the number. Of course, you can beautify it. There's a multiple ways skin a cat. You can see there's multiple way. At the end of the day, if you understand this branching, while loop, and everything else, and you have to check the user input, right? If the user have a capitalized input, how would you code it to let the player know how many attempts they have left? That's easy. You can use another variable like try attempt equal to 0. So you initialize that attempt. Okay, and then every time you go to the loop, right? You can say attempt plus equal to 1. So you add 1 to attempt every time. So now you can say how many attempts have left from I in the for loop or in the while loop, right? You can say something like, you can print, right? You have left. Let's using F string. Gee, you keep adding features now. Okay, you have attempt. Is that right? Okay, so actually it's not attempt left. Say if your total, let's say macro transaction, you're kidding. Total equal to, let's give them 5 times, 6 times, right? And then it's a total minus temp, right? So you do some calculation here. Total minus temp left. Let's see. So every time you add 1, you have this left. Okay, that's clear. And then run it. You have 5 times left. Times left. Okay. 50, 50. Too high. You have 4 times left. Too high, right? 25. And you have 3 left. 25, 15. You have 2 left. Oh, too high. Too high. 20. Best value get 10 more. Okay, you got the idea. And also, when you play, there's a strategy here in this game, right? You probably noticed that every time it give me some prompt, I'm just chop that answer in half. That's called a binary search. So what's the advantage of doing that instead of linearly, like just going 1 step at a time? Anyone give some comment here? See, every time you get the range, I chopped it the other half because I don't need to go, right? Delete half of the numbers, yes. And how many times? So now here's a question you can think about. If I have a number from 1 to 100, maximally how many times, if I stick to that strategy, right? What's the maximum time that I'm guaranteed to win? IDEs, right? How you calculate that? Basically, it's 100 divided by 2. Oh, Python, sorry. 100 divided by 2 is 50, and 50 divided by 2 is 25, 25 divided by 2 is 12, 12 divided by 2 is 6, 6 divided by 2 is 3, 3 divided by 2 is 1. And when you have only 1 choice left, that's the correct answer, right? So maximally you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times to try, right? And not surprisingly, 2 to the power of 6 is 64, sorry, 2 to the power of 7 is a little bit more than 100. So actually, the answer is 7 times that you. So if you have tried 7 times, you're guaranteed to win 1 to 100. If you have 1,000 number, 1 to 1,000, how many times you can guess? So 2 to the power of something is equal to 1,000, right? 2 to the power of 10 is 1024. So it's about 10 times you can guarantee to win. All right. So next time you go to a gambling, or never go to gambling, but if some people want to invite you to do a game, never bet if people say, give me 7 times to try, and they will guarantee to win, right? So now you learn something about computer science. You can actually simulate the game first and find a good strategy, and before you can go to Vegas and win lots of money. Yes, here you go. Okay. So now hopefully you are more interested in Python through this introduction lecture, and we'll see you next week. And as always, if you have any questions, email me or something. I will give you the link here, so you can actually refer to that. You can play with it. You can even modify it yourself, okay? Any questions? When we talk about the project for next week, right now, there's no project for next week, is it? It's just to give you a heads up. I guess maybe. Well, we'll talk about it in the next, if it's next week, let's talk about in next week's lecture. How about that? Okay, thank you. Have a good